Hello, everyone, and welcome to my channel. My name is Sherry. Today, I will share a very personal story with you. It is a story about my divorce. I've been divorced for a little over 5 years now. I will share this story with you because it was some people who shared their divorce story on YouTube, and their story resonated with me, and their story actually helped me. So I'm sharing this for no other reason than to help someone else. I believe that when we go through things in life, whether they're good, whether they're bad, whether they're ugly, we are not to keep that experience to ourselves, but to share that experience with someone else, because it can help someone else. It can lift else up from the very pit that they may be in due to the situation that they may be facing. Now, in my story, I will not be calling any names. I will not be downing anyone. I will just share from my experience, because as you know, those of you who've been married, marriage involves two people, not just one. So when there is a breakup in the marriage, you have to look at yourself to see, what do you do? How do you contribute in some way? Because I do believe in every marriage, we all contribute, we both contribute. Whether you contribute in the way of doing something that's not positive, that helps the relationship to be healthy, or if you just stood back and let things happen to you and you did nothing about it, you contributed to how you let another person treat you. You stayed in it and participated in it. So anyway, I will start my story by saying I got married when I was 19 years old. I know. 19 years old is way too soon, too early, too young for anyone to get married, in my opinion. When I look back on it, I can think back to when I told my mother I was going to get married, and she did not want to hear those words. She wanted me to wait, and those were her words. Her words were, "You're too young. Wait, no, please don't." Well, I didn't listen to my mother because, of course, I thought I was so in love. You all can relate to me, right? When you're young, you're in high school, you think you're so in love and this is the one, you're going to be with this person forever and ever and ever. Amen. Well, that's what I did. I did get married at 19. And when I first got married, oh my God, it was so beautiful. Everything was lovely. It seemed like something right out of a fairy tale to me, in my opinion. Now, I did not grow up seeing a role model of a great marriage. My mother was a single mother, so I never saw her married before, or never saw what a good marriage should be like. However, I believe I knew what a marriage should have been like, because at the time I was a Christian. I was living what I considered to be by the faith, the Christian faith. I was in church. He was in church. His family was in church. My family was in church, some of them. So I thought, based on that, just like anybody who would have like the natural way of knowing how to treat a person, how to be kind to people, like even strangers. So with my faith and me feeling like I knew how to treat another human being, I felt like I knew what I needed to do to be a good wife. So as a good wife, I thought, okay, if I just cook, if I just clean, if I just do my wifely duties, I thought that this was going to be awesome. Now, when I say that I thought this was going to be awesome, and when I say that thought if I did my wifely duties, the cooking, the cleaning, that everything would have gone well, I don't want anyone to be misled to think that I was cooking and I kept the house clean every day. It was spotless. Um, I don't want anybody to think that I was a perfect wife, because I know for a fact that I was not a perfect wife. You know, as you begin to live together and grow together, you soon realize that, okay, I have connected myself with this other person. We're growing and we're learning together. And remember, we were both young. He was in his 20s. I was 19 when we got married. However, I thought for a while that things were great. He seemed to really consider my thoughts and feelings. Um, and everything seemed really well for the first 7 years. It was about 7 years before we had our first child. I began to notice some things even then, even before then. I began to notice some red flags even before we had children. But me being so young and me wanting to trust another person so much, I did not pay attention to the red flags. So when I said at the beginning how even if you may feel like you didn't do anything wrong, if you participate in letting a person do certain things and not asking the right questions, um, and at the time, I didn't even know the questions to answer. I just knew to trust. I just knew that I was married. I want to be a good wife. I believe he's a good husband. So I'm in this thing to stay forever and ever. Amen. All right. So as things began to go along in the marriage, neither one of us, as I look back, at such a young age, you can't say you showed up as your best self. I didn't show up as my best self. He didn't show up as his best self. I'm still learning and trying to grow, trying to learn the world, trying to learn myself. I was still in college at the time, even. So, and he was working a job. So you're just trying to make things work. And I did enjoy my time with him, and I thought he enjoyed his time with me. So as time went on, we began to have children, and oh my God, that was such a happy time in our lives, in both of our lives. We were both so excited to have our first child, and then our second child, and then our third child, who was a surprise. All right, so as the years went by, I noticed that there was the joy that once was in the marriage was no longer there. I know that he worked a lot. He was not home a lot. And sometimes I have joked, I would even joke back then and say, I believe that's what helped us to stay together as long as we did, because he was not home a lot. He was working all the time. And we never did things together that married couples would do. We didn't go out on dates. Very rarely did we go out on dates. We never celebrated one anniversary, and we were married for 29 years. If we had stayed together, we got married in March of 1999. And if we had, oh, I'm sorry, we got married in March of 1991. If we had stayed together, the February that we divorced, we would have been married 30 years that March of 2021. And I did say earlier that we have been divorced for 5 years, but actually we have been divorced over 4 years. It's been over 5 years that he's actually been gone. He's actually been gone since 2019. So we were married almost 30 years. So as I stated, there were things I began to notice in the marriage, especially after we had children, that were red flags, more red flags I began to see. But again, I just thought, okay, this person is stubborn, just being stubborn right now. I just kept praying and I just kept believing that after a while, this is just a season we're going through right now. After a while, things are going to get better. Well, those days of getting better never came. I noticed that my ex-husband was very distant, very withdrawn, enjoyed being by himself a lot. We never, as I said, really did a lot of things together. So those were all red flags right there. And if anyone is in a marriage like that, marriage, you can tell, you can feel, you know when you are loved. So if you're not feeling loved, you need to pay attention to that. If someone is not speaking to you in a respectful way, you need to pay attention to that. And you need to pay attention to that as well, to make sure that you're being respectful to who your partner is. You need to respect at all times. Now, I'm not trying to make myself look like I was always respectful, always, said what he wanted to hear, because I did not. I know I did not. But so anyway, even though that's the case, I never saw divorce in my future. I always thought, even though I did not grow up in a house with a mother who was married or a father, I didn't see that example before me, I would have never divorced. I was in the marriage to stay forever. I was willing to do whatever it took to keep the marriage and the family together. And when I say that, some people say, well, no, you should not stay in a marriage if you're not happy. I believe in, you should be in a marriage unless there's abuse. And I know abuse can be in different forms. Abuse is not just physically. Abuse can be emotional abuse. It can be mental abuse. So no form of abuse is acceptable. All right. So I believe at that time in making the marriage work, whether you need to go to counseling or therapy or whatever you need to do, because I do believe it's important for families to try to stay together. And when I say for the children, I believe it's good for all children, any children, that their parents are together. I think it puts a lot of stress on children. It's just not good, I don't believe, emotionally for the children when the parents are not in the home together. And so I would say it's important. I heard a comedian, Marcus D. Wiley, say in one of his comedy shows, no, not in a comedy show, in an interview that he had, that he believes that, people will say, you should not just stay together for the children. And he said, what better reason to stay together than to stay with your children? It's important that children have their mother and their father in the home. And I'm not saying just be in the home at any rate. Like if somebody's having an affair and they want to continue to be married and have their affair and do whatever, but they still going to be in the home. No, I'm not talking about that at all. No, I'm saying I believe men and women, husbands and wives, should work together to work on being kind to each other, respecting each other, doing whatever they need to do to make it work. But you have to have both people who are willing to make it work. You cannot make anybody want you. You can't make anybody be happy with you. So I'm just saying, if you can salvage it, do that.